So I joined the Air Force when I was 18, basically to get away from home. I joined up working in logistics. My first tour of duty was in the Falkland Islands, which is where I met my first wife. It was a very sort of difficult relationship, but we decided to get married anyway to see if we can make it work in the long run. But unfortunately it didn't. In hindsight, I believe our getting married was to make it easier in the Air Force for us both, as in, you know, we would get a house and all this kind of stuff, which we did. I spent a couple of years in Cyprus where she was sent to work. They didn't send me out there, it took me 12 months to get out there. So our first 12 months of marriage, we saw each other for about 6 weeks in total, which wasn't a great start to the relationship. And then came back to the UK, at which point I had left the Air Force and tried to make ends meet working in Civvy Street, but that didn't work either. So I rejoined the Air Force. It was just really tough, it really was. I just sank lower and lower. I managed to get through basic training mainly because I had that experience and had done it before and I knew what to expect. All the while our relationship was going from bad to worse. And it got to a sort of pinch point. And at this point my grandparents suggested I go and stay with them for a weekend, which I did. And I ended up going to a men's breakfast with my granddad on the Saturday morning that I was there. And this is probably the first time I'd spent some real time with real Christians for a good 10 years. There was probably about 9 older guys there. I was the youngest by far. They're probably in their 50s upwards, up to my granddad. And so, but there was actually a black fella there called Calvin, who basically stared at me for 2 hours. And at the end of that 2 hours, he just pointed at me and went, "Josh, are you in the kingdom?" And I was like, I don't think so, I don't know. He said, you know, try Jesus. So that sowed a seed. And so the next 2 decisions I made were sort of bittersweet. I separated from my ex-wife, and then about a month later I committed my life to Christ. And so I started going to church the very next Sunday, a nice church in Wolverhampton called Lifespring, which is where I met my now wife Gemma. Being at that church and meeting Gemma were amazing. You know, she accepted me for who I am, and it wasn't long before we were engaged and we got married, and then I moved back to Brize Norton to work on the Hercules here. When I first became a Christian, I used to swear a lot before that. So the big challenge for me was to try and stop swearing, which does work most of the time, but as we all know, when we get frustrated or we don't think about what we're going to say before we say it, it kind of just pops out. I used to kind of poke my nose in other people's business and be a bit of a gossip, so trying to stay away from that, for me personally, it can be a challenge, and that's a daily thing, you know. So 2 or 3 points of advice I would probably give to people serving in the military as Christians is one, to be honest about your faith, because that kind of encourages people to have a bit more respect for what you believe in if you're willing to stand by your faith and be honest and open about it. Also, there's a verse that I kind of say to myself daily inside. It's Psalm 19:14. It's may the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. So being careful about what you say about yourself and about other people in the workplace as well. Think about what you say before you say it, because well, your words are your world basically, and they're very powerful. They can be used to build people up or to break them down. So you just need to think about things like that. And thirdly, getting support from Christian networks whilst in the military is key. The Armed Forces Christian Union have been very helpful and supportive whilst I've been a Christian in the military, and they can, you know, they're prayer warriors behind the scenes. They can provide prayer links for you, they can link you up with other Christians in your locality. Being part of a church always helps. It encourages community, and it helps you to connect with other Christians outside of the military as well, which is also very important. We all fail and make mistakes at some points, but the beauty of Christianity is the grace that God gives us to carry on and continually say sorry, you know, because he's already forgiven us at the cross.